All right, so let's take a look at some of your homework problems on page 418, 419. I asked you to do 51 to 57 odd. So taking a look at these, it's asking us to, let's see, we have some zero problems. There's two of those, and there's two square roots. So it shouldn't be a big deal. The earbuds just fell out of my ears. I don't know how you guys walk around with these in your ears all day. They're always falling out of mine. All right, so let's take a look at these. I should be able to do all four of these. Number 51, it says we have the square root, positive square root of 1 minus the cosine of 6x over 2. Well, that looks a lot like the formula for the sine of x over 2, except the sine of x over 2 is plus or minus 1 minus the cosine of x over 2. So obviously this needs to be 6. So this is going to be the sine of 6x over 2. And because this is a positive problem, we have to force the answer to be positive. This is really going to kick off a positive or negative answer. So to make it be positive, we're going to put absolute value, and that should be the answer. Number 53. All right, number 53 is a good looking problem. It's the negative square root of 1 minus the cosine of 8x over 1 plus the cosine of 8x. And this looks a lot like the tangent formula of x over 2. The first equation, it says plus or minus the square root of 1 minus the cosine of x over 1 plus the cosine of x. Except x is being replaced with 8x. So we're going to write this as the tangent of 8x over 2. But because this is negative and the tangent formula kicks off a positive or a negative, we force it to be positive and then we put a negative in front of it. That would give us an answer that's only negative. You take a positive answer from here and you put a negative in front, giving you a definite negative answer. Let's just simplify it a little bit more. 8x divided by 2 would be the tangent of 4x. All right, this is fun. I kind of like these problems. What about you guys? Just raise your hand if you don't like these problems. Let's do that. All right, so nobody's raising their hand. So good. I'm glad you guys enjoy this. So sine of x over 2 minus the cosine of x. And we're going to be finding the zeros here, which means 0 would equal, this would be a plus or minus square root of 1 minus the cosine of x over 2 minus cosine. We've seen this kind of problem before. We could bring the cosine on the other side and then square both sides to get rid of the plus or minus square root. We get cosine squared of x is equal to 1 minus the cosine of x over 2. Multiply both sides by 2. And get everything on one side, make it equal to 0. Let's see what happens. So 2 cosine squared of x plus the cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. So factoring this would be 2 cosine of x. This would be cosine of x. 1 and 1. Have to multiply to be negative, but the middle has to be positive. So this is positive 1 cosine. This is positive 2. So we have to get a positive 2 and a negative 1. So let's finish this. We want to know when is the cosine of x equal to 1/2, and when is the cosine of x equal to negative 1. Well, cosine of x is negative 1 right here at pi radians. And this is between 0 and 2 pi, so pi would be it. The interval is between 0 and 2 pi. So then when is it 1/2? Well, 60 degrees. Let me see here. 1, 2, root 3. That would be one of the answers. So x is 60, and x would also be this 60, which is 300. I think it's 5 pi over 3. Yeah, pi over 3 is 60, so 5 times 60 is 300. So that would be the answer there. All right, one more problem. Let's take a look at number 57. For 57, it says we're going to be finding the cosine of x over 2 minus the sine of x. That's equal to the function h of x. And we want to find the zeros for this. Not a big deal. So let's do this. Okay, zeros mean we make h of x equal to 0. And then the formula for cosine is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus the cosine of x over 2 minus the sine of x. So let's get the radical by itself so we could square both sides and get rid of it. Now that's going to be sine squared, but we want to try to get all the same trig functions. So I know sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. So sine squared would be 1 minus cosine squared. So I'm just going to fill that in here. Let's multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the fractions. Then I'm going to try to get this whole thing equal to 0. So I'm going to bring all these terms on the other side. So my first term is a positive 2. And this is exactly the same problem we had over here. 2 cosine squared of x plus cosine minus 1 plus cosine of x equal minus 1, is that right? 2 cosine squared of x plus cosine minus 1 plus cosine. So then that means that the answers are going to be exactly the same. So I'll just write it again here. So this would factor to be 2 cosine of x. This would be cosine of x. We have 1 and 1, positive 2, negative 1. So 1 is cosine of x 1/2. 1 is cosine of x negative 1. That's why the answer would be pi. We saw that this happened at 60 degrees and at 300. All right, so that's your homework. And for the rest of today, what we're going to be doing is just reviewing this lesson, and tomorrow is going to be your quiz.